Hello everyone, I'm going to briefly run through a lecture and PowerPoint presentation about fundraising fundamentals and specifically look to the platforms of crowdfunding and what we should be looking at in terms of stages and activities and perhaps even ethics when we look at crowdfunding. So as many of you are aware, there are a number of different levels of which we can find support for projects, especially if we are a nonprofit or a not-for-profit. This includes grants at a foundation or government level, sponsorships from corporations and businesses, and individual donors. If you are a 501c3 charity, the way that donors realize a benefit is through a tax deduction under itemization. And one thing to know is that they can only deduct the gift amount less the fair market value of any benefits received. In kind is any goods or service that are received and have a value attached to that the donor then takes off as a charitable deduction. If you are more interested in fundraising, there is an Association of Fundraising Professionals and they do have a certificate program. One thing I want to point out is around ethics and some big ideas for professional fundraisers. The structure of pay cannot be based on commission. In other words, fundraising professionals cannot receive back a percentage based on what they earn or what they raise for a company or corporation, even if they are freelancers. This is against the ethics of the fundraising professionals, or AFP. They also Some other things you want to be looking at, especially when you're looking at crowdfunding, is making sure you're paying attention to credit or be cognizant of original work. If you make any derivatives or use any minors in any video materials, that you have the appropriate credits and permissions in place. So looking at crowdfunding, we're going to look at a campaign that finished a little while ago. It was a Kickstarter campaign done by the Smithsonian for Dorothy's ruby slippers. The way I want you to think about fundraising and crowdfunding is around a series of stages. So the first one is laying the groundwork or setting up the foundation for your project. This is going to be around your organizational mission, vision, history, or if you're an individual artist, your artist statement and philosophy. You want to demonstrate to those people who may be donating that you have the capacity to take on the project or have the ability to ramp up quickly to do capacity. You want to demonstrate a need for the project, program, or initiative. Why are you doing this project, and those who will benefit, do they need to benefit? And you'll also want to make sure that you have the appropriate financial documents in order. If we look at the Ruby Slipper campaign, we see that they are setting the stage, no place at home, giving you the background information, and are telling you what's happening to the Ruby Slippers and why they are embarking on this campaign. Also setting up why they're looking for a broad base of support through the Kickstarter campaign, and even head off that question about the Smithsonian being federally funded, and don't we already pay for this with our tax dollars? Next, you have the ask or proposal stage where you're making a case for support. This can relate back to your campaign goals and your use of funds. Think about those terms of giving. What if you don't raise all the money you need? What do you do with that money? Some of the platforms have specific rules about that, but others do not. Or if the project changes, maybe conditions change where you can't pursue the project. Do you have a secondary use for the funds that is aligned with the original intent of the donors? So that's something to think about and include in your terms of giving. And in the Kickstarter example, they have a video that interested people can watch where that whole case is laid out. Next, you have momentum strategies. How are you going to keep people engaged during the campaign? This could include appeals to the press, reports on the goal progress or updates, intermediary project stages such as Oh, hey, we've raised enough to do this. Now we're looking to move on to our next stage. So that's what's meant by that. And even, especially for individuals, you can do quirky stunts or gimmicks as a way to keep the momentum going. And here we see in the example, just in 2 days, they raised quite a bit of money and had project updates that were built into the platform. When we think about fundraising, a traditional device is the giving tree. How many gifts at each level do you need to reach your goal? Generally, you're going to know what you have already identified who might be at that top level, and it's great to have that already seated. So when you announce the campaign, so there already seems to be some momentum. But pay attention to those lower levels because you want to have easy points of access for people who may just be interested and want to give something. So around this, you'll need to think about what incentives will you have at each level. These should address not only your strategies to reward support, but you also want to be thinking about fostering future engagement and that continued relationship as you move forward in your career. These donors could turn into patrons who could turn into clients and support you in other ways besides the project support of this particular endeavor. So what incentives? Maybe you are recognizing their support or promoting the support. Maybe you're giving out swag, services, insider opportunities, or those quirky benefits. Here we have with the Smithsonian campaign a lot of swag. As you can imagine, they're probably going to have a lot of donors who don't live close or not local, and they would want something that would be portable, something they can send and deliver pretty quickly. Finally, after the donation is made, you want to make sure you're delivering on those benefits, giving the appropriate thank yous. And if you want to have a plan after the campaign goal is reached, perhaps you're going to have a stretch goal. But let's say all the fundraising is done. Now you got to launch that project, and you still want to keep your donors involved in your process. That's sort of the cool thing about being a supporter who is directly involved in the creation of these projects. And you want to provide that group with intermediary updates as to how your progress is going. Then after the project is completed, you might want to have a grand reveal of the final project and figure out ways that the backers can experience this for themselves. And that could be a direct tie-in to the benefits. And you want to be thinking about how you can continue the relationship. So for whatever comes next, those people are on your side and can be your advocates. So here we have with the Ruby Slippers, they are setting up how they are going to deliver on the project by showing where it's going to be they are going to be displayed. And once they had reached their initial goal, they did announce a stretch goal. You can see that their stretch relates directly to the project and interests of those donors because it's also part of the Wizard of Oz. So I hope this was helpful, and we will talk more about this in class.